It's time to lock into the crypto market because I believe after Trump's victory, we are about to enter phase 3 of the crypto bull run. I have the data today that I want to show you that verifies where we are currently sitting from a macro bull run perspective. And I want to talk about what we can expect over the next few weeks and the next few months, as I believe things are about to significantly heat up. Of course, because of that, we need to talk about the top altcoins that you should be in right now to get exposure to this upside, as well as my strategy for entering and exiting these altcoins. So today's video is going to obviously recap the events of yesterday, but mostly talk about why I think it changes things for crypto, where I think we are in the macro cycle, and what altcoins are the major beneficiaries. I did make a couple of moves over the last 24 hours to reflect the result, which I want to discuss today. Firstly, I just want to say congratulations because we got through it. We got through what was a pretty nerve-wracking period, and we had the result we wanted. Not only did we get a Trump presidency, we also got a Republican Senate. And I'm going to go through some of the really important things to do with the election that are actually going to work in our favor in terms of cryptocurrency. I want to shout out everyone that hung out with me and the bunch of guests, as you can see, Hustle here from Crypto Bounty that we had on the channel yesterday. I live streamed for 3.5 hours, including spaces and other streams. I did over 5 hours of live streaming yesterday. So it was amazing to be able to share this moment with you guys, to share the Bitcoin all-time high with you guys, to share just what was, I think, just a breath of relief for a lot of us yesterday, having the potential negative outcomes that could have come from a Kamala victory out of the way. Luckily, we don't need to talk about politics anymore. It was an annoying week of worrying and talking and speculating about politics, but now we can get back to what matters and frankly what I'm good at, and that's crypto, not politics. So no more political LARPing on this channel. We're going to get into the facts. We're going to get back into altcoin mode. I've got a couple of coins today that I really want to discuss with you, especially because I think they're major beneficiaries of the Trump victory. And let's lock in because I do believe it's risk on season. I want to show you the data behind why I believe this is the case. And risk on season means you need to be prepared. You need to be locked into the market. I am grinding as hard as I ever have because I think the upside, the risk reward of being in the trenches right now that we have the Trump win, is just so much higher than it was even a few weeks ago. So locking in, I know it's a phrase that's used a lot. I really don't think you can underestimate that phrase right now because it's literally what you need to be doing. And I'm going to help guide you through this over the next couple of weeks. We're probably going to be doing daily uploads again. There might be some days where I just don't have any content and I don't want to upload videos that aren't actually helpful for you guys. I want to make sure each video contains a lot of alpha. So if I skip a day, it's because I don't have alpha. But if I do upload, it's because, I have alpha. And boy, will today have some alpha because we have a lot to unpack. So firstly, let's go through a market update. For those that are unaware, you pretty much should all be aware by now, Trump is the 47th president of the United States. I think what surprised me is just how quickly it all happened. There was a scenario where this was going to take days and weeks and get really drawn out, and there was going to be recounts, and it would just be a complete mess. It wasn't like that at all. We pretty much knew Trump was the winner. As soon as the Pennsylvania count really started, we're like, whoa, he is surprisingly dominant here across the swing states. And he pretty much won every single swing state, which I think shocked a lot of people. It even surprised me, but it was a relief to have it done so quickly because it wasn't dragged out. We got a quick response. The market went straight to all-time highs. I know a lot of you are wondering, is it time to jump back in now? What do I make of all the price action? We'll get into that in a minute. But what you really need to know is that, importantly, we avoided the bad situation, which was obviously a potential violent dip coming from a Kamala victory. The really important thing here from a crypto perspective is the fact that not only he got a clean sweep on the swing states, it's also the fact that they have a majority in the Senate. So they won the presidency, the Republicans, the popular vote, the Senate majority, the House majority, the state governor majority, and the state legislature majority. So this actually means for all issues, but I want to focus crypto and not politically LARP, they have a lot more say now. They have a lot more sway and a lot more power than maybe they would have during his last 4-year term, which I think for a pro-crypto president bodes very well for the industry. Once again, not going to talk about anything else apart from crypto here, but I think for crypto, this is actually a good thing, as there will be less barriers on potentially positive legislation that needs to come in to regulate the space. I'm a big proponent of crypto regulation. I just think it needs to be done in the right way, and I have more faith in the Trump government doing that than I do the Kamala government, which was obviously also what the market thought, which is why we've had a positive price reaction and not a negative one over the past 24 hours. And this kind of sets an interesting stage for crypto, because now we have a pro-crypto president. He's been very vocal about how he's pro-Bitcoin. He wants Bitcoin and crypto to be in America. He doesn't want to drive innovation offshore. We have the Fed cutting rates. There's FOMC tomorrow, which is major. That is something you got to keep your eye on. There might be a little bit of volatility around that event, but obviously the election was the main thing. But we are now in a rate cutting cycle in terms of the Fed. We have global liquidity on the rise, which is the number one constituent of price performance for Bitcoin and thus altcoins. So there is a very strong macro backdrop at the moment. I'll even add to this list in this video here. I think we have a lot of the forced selling, the German selling, the Mt. Gox selling largely out of the way, which was obviously one of the things that was suppressing the market over the past 6 months. You have stocks and gold at all-time highs. Gold actually drew down because the market is now a little bit less uncertain now that we know who the president is, but stocks are certainly surging higher. We're going to look at that in a second here. Of course, we've made a new Bitcoin all-time high. So the picture here, in my opinion, is really pointing towards an accelerated cycle. I did say this pre-election, if Trump won, I thought the likelihood of a Bitcoin all-time high this quarter is much, much higher. We actually got that on the day. I think it can continue to go much higher. We'll discuss that as we get into the charts in a minute here. And potentially, I don't know when the peak's going to be exactly. Maybe we're looking at a Q1 peak now, but we are definitely looking at an accelerated cycle. So things are starting to heat up, and we kind of have a litany of factors that are all pointing towards macro bullishness, and there's no reason to suggest this won't be the case now. So that is why I'm saying lock in. That is why I'm saying the next phase of the market is beginning, and I want to show you the charts and the data behind that in a minute. Obviously, with the Republicans winning the Senate, we have Tim Scott replacing Elizabeth Warren as the head of the Senate Banking Committee. We know Elizabeth Warren was against crypto. The Democrats in general were definitely perpetuating the regulatory harshness via Operation Choke Point 2.0, which now, in my opinion, will not be a thing. I can't see Trump with his son launching DeFi projects and him being so pro-crypto to have the propensity to go after these projects and name things securities. Like, maybe, yes, they're going to put regulation forward. Maybe, yes, that will result in some fines, and so it should. But I think baselessly going after American companies and attacking them, which is really what Gensler was doing, I can't see that happening now under Trump. And I think Trump winning is inherently bullish, but I think what's even more bullish is the fact that Kamala didn't win. And I think the more important thing here is not Trump winning and sending Bitcoin higher. It's the fact that we won't have another 4 years of regulatory FUD and Operation Choke Point, what could have been 3.0, which is really important in my opinion, because it gives us, I feel like, headroom for the next few years. It gives the space headroom to grow. As I said, I believe in regulation, but at least we now will not have the baseless FUD constantly suppressing token prices, constantly FUDding our bags, essentially, which I think is even more important than the fact Trump won. Now, of course, Trump winning could potentially lead to things like, a sovereign Bitcoin reserve. It can lead to the American government investing in Bitcoin mining. It could lead to Trump launching more crypto projects, of course, and that's all important. But the fact that we won't have these baseless attacks is even more important in my opinion, and it's why some sectors like DeFi are performing really, really well. That's a sector I want to discuss later in this video, because there are a few altcoins there which I think there's really big opportunities now that you don't have the narrative which was suppressing DeFi, which was obviously choke point, there anymore. That's really, really important. So obviously we know Trump won. How did the market react to all of this news? Well, the market is obviously up. Bitcoin hit all-time highs. Now, it went to 76,000. I think some people were expecting 80,000 plus. I must admit, I was a little bit underwhelmed in terms of Bitcoin's instant price performance. But what I did say on Rand Stream when I went on it yesterday is the fact that there was a lot of pre-positioning. So once it looked like Trump was the favorite, when he was between 55 and 70% on Polymarket, Bitcoin was around 60K. It did have that move to 70K, which I think was like a Trump fueled rally of people betting on Bitcoin via the spot ETFs, especially, you know, the retail contingent in the TradFi markets, to try and get some exposure to basically bet on a Trump victory. So a lot of that buy pressure had already come in. So we did see the wick, of course, from 70 up to 75, but I don't think it went any higher because there was already a lot of positioning that actually took place, and some people decided to take profits because they were already up, you know, 15-20% on that trade. So for me, it made sense why Bitcoin maybe didn't go to like 85 on the day. I did say on my Twitter, I predicted beforehand that I thought it would hit between 75 and 80. That was true, but we hit the lower range of that prediction, so reaching, I think, around 76k on the wick instead of going to 80, which I think is still fine. I actually think it's a good thing. The market didn't run away from us like I think a lot of people thought it would, meaning like 85k Bitcoin, 3.5k Ethereum, $250 Solana, like that actually wouldn't be as good, I don't think, because we still have opportunities. Like I can objectively look at the market today and I'm spotting a lot of different altcoins, which I think are actually presenting good opportunities, which we'll discuss today, even at current prices after the election, which is great. Because as we head into this next leg, when the market will really start to price in my opinion, the Trump victory, there is still a lot of upside in these strong narratives. Whereas if we went straight to 80, 85, it was probably a little bit harder to assert what to do in that situation. It's pretty hard to like justify buying into a massive pump, right? I think FOMC tomorrow, just in case there's a shock, there has just people like a little bit cautious, but I think the election was obviously the major event for crypto. Now, in terms of how the market reacted, apart from crypto, what was interesting is we saw Coinbase stock absolutely fly. I wish I discussed this last week because there was part of me that was like, Coinbase actually looks like a buy here at $179, but I never, for whatever reason, mentioned that in the video. Sorry, and now it's up 31%. But Coinbase, obviously, it just gives you a bit of an insight into what the market is thinking about Trump's victory, because Coinbase is the number one exchange that's regulated in the US. So that being up 31% today shows you that the market thinks that Trump is going to be better for crypto regulation. And this isn't crypto degen speculating on that. This is proper like retail and more traditional like funds, etc., money betting on the crypto industry via the stock market. That gives me some confidence that we may continue to see really strong positive inflows on Bitcoin, even though Trump won. So interestingly, in the lead up to the election, there was a lot of inflows. Why? Because people were using Bitcoin as a proxy to speculate on Trump. So there was tons and tons and tons of inflows. Then on the day of the election and in the days leading up to the election, you saw some outflows, right? You saw those outflows because people were de-risking ahead of a potential Kamala victory. That's why we also saw the altcoin market start to sell off, because people were scared. Well, what happened? Late yesterday, we saw a mass amount of inflows once we got wind of obviously Trump being the president, and $600 million flew into the Bitcoin ETFs. Now, this may be rocky for a couple of weeks because there will be some people that want to take profits and lock in the Trump trade. But what I really want to assert from this is the confidence that the market actually gave Bitcoin because of the amount of inflows that we saw on election day. So I think this could definitely continue to fuel the market higher, getting that consistent bid. Now that there is a lot of regulatory potential FUD out of the way, you may see the door opening for, as we know, Microsoft is having a vote, for example, about adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. We may see the door opening for more companies doing this and adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets, which I think is going to be massive. And a lot of these companies are going to obviously position via the spot ETFs because it's the easiest, most regulated way to get exposure rather than, you know, holding a bunch of crypto wallets and whatnot. So keep your eye on this. These inflows could be really, really interesting. Obviously, you also have Saylor committing to buying a lot more Bitcoin. So you don't only have buy pressure from the ETFs, you have buy pressure from Saylor. So those are two factors which I think are going to see Bitcoin move even higher, probably into the 80K range. The other thing is we're actually consolidating above previous all-time high right now, which is really, really bullish because that means that I think we're prepping for that next leg of price discovery. The great thing about price discovery is there's no price levels to like limit you back. That's why it's called price discovery. So Bitcoin going to 75, 80, 85, 90, like it can happen quick because there's not as much sell pressure. Obviously, you'll have some people taking profits, but the more Bitcoin accelerates, the more marketing the space is going to get. The more people talk about Bitcoin on the news, the more people are exposed to it, the more search volume goes up, the more people buy altcoins because they're exposed to crypto. Again, they're reminded, oh, what's that Bitcoin thing doing? Well, that's crazy. Like, let me check out crypto again. And then they get into the popular narratives like memes, etc., like AI, which is part of the reason why I think they're going to be two really strong performers as Bitcoin continues to go higher. But crypto is a reflexive flywheel. It's a flywheel of bullish momentum leading to more bullish momentum. And I think you will see that as Bitcoin continues to move higher. How else did the market react before I get into the next segment, which is going to be the stats behind the crypto bull market and where we currently sit, in my opinion, in the macro bull market in terms of timeline here. The S&P is up significantly, reaching new all-time highs. That's super bullish. $1.28 trillion added to the US stock market today. That is a really, really strong sign. Actually, if you guys remember, I did a video like a couple of weeks ago talking about how Bitcoin was lagging stocks, but I thought it would catch up. That's exactly what we've seen. Stocks and Bitcoin are now on a relative basis to their all-time high at the same levels. So that discrepancy did end up ironing out. So whenever, and this is just basic like logic for you guys, whenever there's a massive discrepancy between the Bitcoin price and the stock price, you can play that discrepancy by buying Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin is significantly outperforming, you can take that as a sign to maybe take some profits because it's overextended, because they often match back up. Obviously, over time, Bitcoin outperforms stocks, but in terms of price performance on a relative basis to like all-time highs, they typically align with each other, which I do find really interesting. But although Bitcoin is correlated to stocks and somewhat gold, it's most correlated to global liquidity. And we are in a global liquidity cycle of increasing liquidity. And actually Trump, I think, is going to only add to that. He doesn't want his term to be basically looked back on as the guy that like tanked the economy. I think he'll want to keep stimulating the economy. And that is definitely another bull argument that we might need to get into another time, because I want to quickly wrap up this market summary section before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this video. But obviously this is all important context. Gold drew down actually. So it went to all-time highs and then it sold off. Why? Because the market hates uncertainty. So a lot of people were going into gold due to potential geopolitical concerns. I think some people think Trump will potentially alleviate them. Maybe one of the reasons why gold sold off. And also because people are jumping back into risk assets. They're jumping into stocks. They're jumping into Bitcoin. They're jumping into risky stuff because they're betting on the economy being strong under Trump. And the market reaction has been positive for risk on assets. Gold is a more defensive asset. So people are exiting gold, basically, is what is happening. Bitcoin gold is actually breaking out of the channel now. So I would not be surprised if Bitcoin versus gold hits an all-time high. So Bitcoin continues to gain steam over gold, which could result in some FOMO from the gold realm into Bitcoin potentially, because Bitcoin is viewed as like digital gold, right? An interesting thing that we also got was the Dixie, which is the US dollar index, spiking. Typically, when stocks rally, you see the Dixie go down, right? Because people go out of the dollar into risk on assets. We saw it spike, which is an indication of people thinking the US dollar will be stronger under Trump, which is probably true, given the fact that he's, big on obviously the US dollar maintaining its strength, bringing manufacturing back to America. So the market is starting to think, look, we think the US dollar is going to be strong, and it's starting to price that in already. So usually you will see a dollar sell-off, but we didn't see that dollar sell-off with money jumping back into more risky alternatives like Bitcoin and the S&P. We actually saw the dollar increase, which is great for people that hold stable coins, right? In US dollars, USDT or USDC. And it's great for people that obviously earn US dollars. I kind of fall into that category of denominating most of my portfolio in US dollars. So I guess that worked in our favor, right? In the end as well. I also want to go through, just quickly, some of the possible second-order effects from Trump's win. I really like this summary from AAVE. Firstly, Bitcoin becomes a US, I'm going to even bookmark this, strategic reserve asset. That could happen. I don't know if it's going to be his first order of business in office, but it could happen. And the fact that the market knows it could happen is definitely a bullish catalyst to keep pushing Bitcoin higher. If he even teases it, if he even says anything about Bitcoin in one of his speeches, I think the price is going to fly. And it's kind of like the Larry Fink effect. Like, if Larry Fink says anything about asset tokenization at any point, RWA is going to fly. And at any point, if there's a big ChatGPT release or there's a big like AI event or something crazy happens in AI tokens are going to fly. So there are all these narratives that are really responsive to news and price. In this instance, Bitcoin is going to be responsive to Trump. So that is a catalyst which kind of underpins price. It's also why RWA has like maintained relative strength this year. It's also why AI has maintained relative strength this year in general. Obviously, there's been times where it's been down because the market knows you're only one speech, one announcement, one catalyst away from a potential shift in momentum. Secondly, new regulatory regime will make it easier for tokens to capture value from protocols. Definitely. Token classification framework could shift from most tokens of securities to most tokens of commodities. I also agree. Once again, agree with regulation, but needs to be done in a way that's not basically attacking people. Useless DeFi governance tokens become much more attractive investments. They definitely do if they're allowed to do rev share. People, because of the SEC crackdown, have been too scared to do rev share. How crazy is that? A typical stock can issue a dividend. A crypto protocol can't issue revenue because they're scared of being called a security and the ramifications that have on where they can list, how they can be traded, etc. If we have more clarity around that, you're actually going to be able to make more money off your bags, and in turn, your bag is going to perform better, especially for DeFi tokens, which we'll get into later as in this video as a narrative that I really have on my top of my watch list right now. Less fear for entrepreneurs starting crypto businesses, 100%. US is still the number one hub for crypto innovation. It has the most builders of any country in the world. If Kamala won, you could potentially see that shift out of the US, but now US can become a hub again and maintain its hub status, which is important because you have so much talent there, so much talent that, you know, if you have graduates from Harvard or Stanford or wherever, will they really want to go into crypto and build on the blockchain and help contribute to the industry if they're scared of being attacked by the SEC? No, they're going to go into AI and we're going to continue to lose talent to other industries. This is great. It incentivizes the creation of new applications. And at the end of the day, for crypto to succeed long term, you need useful applications that genuinely change people's lives. I think we're on the precipice of that with crypto gaming. We're on the precipice of that with RWA. We're on the precipice of that with AI, in my opinion, but it's only going to continue to accelerate. And these dApps will only be created by more entrepreneurship. And obviously Asia's big and obviously Europe's big, but America is the biggest and we do need it as an industry. So that is another reason why the last 24 hours have been very good for crypto. Just quickly listing off the rest here. Banks will be able to much more freely provide services to crypto startups. Agree. If they don't feel like there's, regulatory pressure, they can give loans, they can give credit facilities, they can actually invest. And this is where the whole Microsoft adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet argument comes in. Like Apple, all these companies, they might feel more comfortable now adding crypto to their balance sheets, obviously starting with Bitcoin. But what if you do end up moving down the risk curve? What if a crypto ETF was launched? This is an idea, not a Bitcoin ETF, not an Ethereum ETF, but an ETF that encapsulates the industry. What if it holds altcoins in it and that's packaged to the public? That's something that BlackRock would definitely want to do because people that want exposure to the upside of crypto, they can buy a basket of assets. That bid may just propel these assets to the upside. Actually, that's a great idea. BlackRock, you got to consider doing that. None of this would even be, we wouldn't be talking about this if Kamala won, right? But with Trump winning, I think there's confidence that this stuff can happen. Obviously, now it's up to Trump to do positive things and actually stand by his word. But all the indications we've got is that this stuff maybe now can happen, especially with a dominant Republican House and Senate. Stablecoin issuance shift to banks, leading to bank-branded stablecoins. And that's also important, right, for the strength of the US dollar. And I think Trump recognizes this. You actually need stablecoins because people all around the world, if they're holding a USD denominated stablecoin, they're actually betting on the US dollar. And there's real US treasuries being bought to underpin those newly minted stablecoins, which is great for the relative strength of the Dixie and the US dollar in general, which the US needs to remain a superpower, right? Trump understands this. That's why I think the push and the embracing of stablecoins will continue to grow. US citizens stop being blocked and excluded from everything crypto related. In some ways, yes, I think it's going to be a hard one to reverse, but I think you'll have more clarity. I think the important thing here is clarity, right? It's not about blocking US citizens for no reason. It's just saying, look, if you want to participate in this, you need to do this. Or if you want access to this exchange, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not going to be able to access X, Y, and Z instead of just blocking the entire platform. So once we get clarity around all of that, and it may take some time, it may take 6 to 12 months, it's going to be much better for the space. But I don't think this is a short-term thing. I think the most important thing is the market's perception. The market's perception really tells you all you need to know. And the fact that we don't have these potential headwinds coming in 2, 3, 4 years for the space gives the market more freedom to reprice higher in the short term. So it's the expectation. It's not even the reality of the legislation going through. It's the expectation that it will go through that leads to higher prices, because I think we reach a bull market peak before a lot of this stuff actually happens. Okay, so now we've been through some of the ramifications of the Trump victory. Let's talk about the stats that matter pertaining to the crypto bull market. Firstly, I want to show you the Bitcoin halving chart. We haven't reviewed this in a while on the channel. This is basically a chart based on Bitcoin's price action and based on the time from the halving that Bitcoin typically reacts from cycle to cycle. What's absolutely remarkable is how similar the price action has actually been. So let's go all the way back to 2016. You have a Bitcoin dump, then you have this orange phase, which is a pump, consolidation, pump. 2018, Bitcoin dump, pump, consolidation, pump. Bitcoin dump, pump, consolidation, pump. If you look at it this way, we are in the third phase, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then phase 4 is your parabola. It's this final 20% of the move is phase 4. He's put 3 things in here, 1, 2, 3. I think there's really 4 phases. I think the first phase is bearish. The second phase is less bearish, optimistic. Now we're entering the third phase, which is expansion, going out of consolidation into expansion. By the way, you still get dips during expansion. Look at this. Dip during expansion. Dip during expansion. Dip during expansion. We're probably going to get some more. There's going to be more opportunities, but we are entering that phase 3. And then phase 4 is the final 20%, which is the parabolic phase. And if you look at it from a time point of view, the end of the bull run, at least according to this, is like Q3 next year. And that doesn't mean it ends straight away, right? Because you could see rebounds and then like the downtrend start. Bitcoin won't go from like, let's say 120K, 150K back down to like 80 in a day. It'll go down and then it'll bounce and go down and then bounce. So like this could drag out to 2026, but you know, with a peak potentially in Q3 next year, Q2, Q3, at least according to this chart. I don't know exactly when it's going to be. The exact top, I don't think it's worth having an exact date in mind because it's going to depend on price action, you know. We could just explode now and pump into January, and then in January I'm like, guys, I think we're topping, honestly, because the price action looks toppy. It's too euphoric. The metrics are starting to shift. We're seeing the technical signs that align with the last top, and I think this is the top, and that might happen early. So there's no point saying, oh, it's definitely going to be May, it's definitely going to be June, it's definitely going to be July, because it all depends on the time. But as a rough guide, I think we're entering phase 3. That's where I think we are right now. The exact timing is not important. The phase that you're in is the most important. On a bullish note for alts, because Bitcoin is one thing, alts are another. Alts have barely done anything yet. We're finally just breaking out of the channel. We're finally just making a higher high. We haven't even pushed back to March highs, right, which are 22%. This tipping point, if this is broken, like we can go so much higher. Like in the previous run, look at the previous bull run. Once we broke past the tipping point, which in this case was like 393, we ran up to 1.1. We had a 3x expansion. So maybe the altcoin market won't be as explosive this time, right? But that would take us to 2 trillion. Even at 1 trillion, which is a 30% expansion, you would still see alts 10, 20, 30xing. Our portfolios would, minimum 3x because we're in the right coins, and some coins within that, some of the lower risk ones are going to 10, 20x, even at a trillion, which isn't even crazy bullish. Most other creators are peddling like $2, $3 trillion price targets. If they're right, we get 100x, but we don't even need to be right. We just need to conservatively hit $1 trillion in the altcoin market, which I believe is I mean, from here, it's not unfathomable at all. It's only 57% up. I mean, Bitcoin is probably going to go up another, 50 to 100% over the next year, potentially. If what's aligning, really ends up eventuating, which no signs suggest that's not the case. We are still following the pattern from the previous cycles. So, I mean, alts, in that instance, if Bitcoin goes up even 30%, 50% is low. Like alts can often run on a 3x beta to Bitcoin. So 30%, they could move up 90%. So that just gives you an idea. Like things have not even started. So don't feel like you've missed it. Don't feel like you're, in a way, you're actually early. in a way, you're very early. Now, you're not early in terms of cycle length because, if we are in phase 3, you're now past the 50% mark. So, you could call early the first 20% of the move, but you're still early from a macro perspective in terms of price action. Remember, 80% of the gains happen in the last 20% time-wise. So if phase 3 kicks off at 50% of the bull market, then the real fun wouldn't actually happen until 80%. And that's where you, in the last 20% time-wise, you get 80% of the gains. So the real fun hasn't even started. So this for me is still accumulation phase technically, but it's more later stage bull market accumulation versus early stage bull market accumulation, which is fine because until you break at least the altcoin tipping point, that's things will only really accelerate once you hit that point. Interestingly, Ben Cowan, who's actually called it really well so far this cycle, he's saying that Bitcoin dominance, in his opinion, is probably reaching the point where it stalls. 65% for him was the upper target that he had between 60 and 65, and he thinks this flips into 2025. He is saying it's going to be an altcoin season. Ben Cowan, of all people, right, is now saying it's going to be an altcoin season. Still a chance dominance goes slightly higher before end of year, but I think it makes sense to start planning for this thing to turn around. It's perfect what's happening. Bitcoin dominance needs to go up to make a healthy altcoin market structure. Bitcoin dominance went up. We have a much more healthy altcoin market structure. Now, this may, as Cowan said, continue to push up a little higher into the end of the year. Sure, Bitcoin could go to 80, 90K, maintain dominance, and then flip into alts. But when the altcoin rotation happens, we're much better set up doing it after a big move into 65% dominance and doing it prematurely from 55%. It just means it's going to be a bigger run doing it this way, which obviously is a great sign. So in light of all this, in light of the Trump victory, in light of where we are in the cycle, what other coins that I'm focused on? What are the narratives I'm focused on? Well, I'm going to give you a skim over the top things that I think you need to look at right now. And then in future videos, we'll obviously be doing more deep dives into each sector, including altcoin gems. So if you do want to make sure you don't miss that content, make sure you click that subscribe button down below and hit that post notification bell so you don't miss the early alpha, because there's going to be lots, especially if I'm uploading daily over the coming weeks. But just generally speaking, these are the narratives you need to keep your eye on. I like this tweet from Cold-Blooded Chiller. He said, seeing a lot of posts like it's going to be the return of DeFi, ETH rotation soon, Sol, Eco catch-up. He says, brother, it's long anything season. You just need to hold without over-rotating and getting chopped up and trying to be smarter than you need to be. 100%. I think the biggest mistake people make in this phase is they chop too much. Something's not pumping, they rotate into another thing, they try and catch another rotation that hasn't run yet. Take a deep breath. It's simple. Long the coins that were showing strength earlier in the year. What were the top strong narratives? Every rally. Well, meme coins were number 1. AI was number 2. BRC was number 3. But I think BRC is an outlier due to the fact that it only really kicked off this year. So obviously there's a major discrepancy when something's starting to get to that inflection point. So that's kind of an outlier for me. Number 3, I would say, is RWA. This is all based on stats. I did a tweet about this. I just memorizing it off the top of my head. And then you have AI as well. So, memes. AI was number 2. So it's, just let me recap here. It's memes number 1, AI number 2, BRC, then RWA. What was number 5? I think it was DeFi or something like that. But those basically memes, AI, RWA. They're the top 3 trends, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. There obviously are outliers from each sector as well, like DeFi, etc., which have also shown strength, and they're likely to be good longs as well. Some infrastructure plays as well, like Solana doesn't really fit into any of those categories, but it's an infrastructure play, and it's probably going to perform well because it has the mind share. So longing the stuff that is strong on dips and then just holding and not chopping in and out too much. Yes, you can rotate. I made some good rotations, which look really good now on CPOOL and CHEX, which I'll get into, from Mantra and Ondo, and they're up significantly. So you can make moves like that, but I'm not rotating narrative. I'm staying within the same narrative. So, you could run up on Tau and make 50% on a Tau trade and then rotate into some riskier stuff. And you're staying within AI. You're not going from AI into gaming to chase gaming and then into RWA and then into memes. And then, you have a nice portfolio. It's set. And you're just chilling. You're making some tweaks every now and then. You're going, I went a bit more risk off pre-election. Then I might go a bit more risk on and then might take profits. You can do that stuff, but the general fabric of your portfolio stays the same. And if you've been watching my channel for the last 6 months, the fabric of what I'm saying is the exact same. Now, the coins might change. I find new stuff. The narratives might change slightly, but they roughly stay the same. But the strategy is the same. We're still in that phase of, longing quality coins on dips, tweaking your portfolio, going more risk on or more risk off, depending on sentiment. If the market's really bearish, going more risk on. If the market is really bullish, going more risk off. Take profits And that's basically like the gist of portfolio construction. But let's talk about the exact coins that I'm focusing on. I still think these will have big upside, by the way. Obviously, as I said, if the market is to do this massive expansion, which I think it will, then there are so many altcoins which are going to perform well. And obviously, the strongest coins are going to continue to lead. Now, the first category, just based on the data, that is responding really well to the Trump win, and we need to talk about it, it's DeFi. Radium, AAVE, Athena, you can see here, Lido, all these coins performing really well based on the DeFi regulatory landscape, which we discussed earlier. So let's discuss DeFi. I think Trump winning is very good for DeFi and RWA, which is a form of DeFi, especially from a regulatory perspective. And I think it's going to trigger a narrative here. And this narrative can sustain because the DeFi and RWA, like these sectors, are kind of being limited by the whole regulatory landscape of the US. Now there's less of price suppression on them, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about a few. Let's start with RWA and then let's go into pure DeFi tokens. But RWA is DeFi, like at the end of the day. It's tokenizing assets. It's bringing assets from TradFi into DeFi. So by nature is DeFi. CHEX is a token that I'm still holding and I'm really, really happy with the price performance. If you look at the money noodle here, which is the custom indicator that Paradise, our top low time frame trader in the Mars High Club, has built, beautifully, it's been adhering to this bullish market structure. You even got that wick down into the noodle, a perfect retest of horizontal and the noodle, which is a combination of moving averages, before a really nice price response. You got a bit of resistance here, but after that, it's clear skies ahead. This, in my opinion, is going to be a $1 billion product if the market ends up going into a bullish expansionary phase. I think it'll be one of the top RWA coins. It's 31 cents now. I think $1, which is a $1 billion market cap, is not crazy when you consider Mantra's at 1.5. Even at today's prices, it'll probably be higher by the time we're talking about. Ondo is at like a 6 bill FDV. Like these things are so high that you have this shelling point, this anchoring effect of like these other top RWA tokens have so much catching up to do. So in a more bullish market environment, your $1 billion plus market cap price targets aren't crazy at all. So CHEX is still one that I like. Buy this on dips. We got one 2 days ago. We got a major dip into the MA. If you're in the Mars High Club, you'll have the moving average. Whenever we dip into that zone, that's kind of your risk on band. So we're in a nice risk on environment on the daily here. You can basically take advantage. These tokens dip. Like I remember when I first talked about this token, and it was here, right? It was like here and then it pumped. People were like, oh, I missed it. I missed your video. I missed the pump. Then a few days later, or was it this pump? Anyway, a few days later, it drew down and you had a major period where you could buy, right? After the pump. So, and then it pumped again. People were like, oh, I missed it. And then you had a major drawdown where you could buy after the pump. So people sometimes get pissed off with me in my content. They say, Miles, you always say buy major dips, but the market's not dipping. It always ends up dipping. Always, always, always. And that's why I say always buy dips. Don't buy into major pumps. Look, if you're willing to just sit on your hands and ride this out to the end of the bull run, by all means, it doesn't really matter when you buy it from a macro perspective, but I find most people are a little more temperamental. Most people, because the reality is YouTube's a retail platform and a lot of my audience is newer, and that's fine because I went through this exact same thing when I entered the space in 2018, 2019, and the bull run 2020, 2021. I went through all these lessons and I was dumb retail. I mean, I'm still technically retail, but I was like a really newbie retail that was FOMOing, and when I bought into something and it pulled down 12%, I'd be like, oh, should I sell? The reality is, if you're willing to just sit on your hands, you're going to probably perform really well by the end of the cycle. But the reason I say buy major dips is because for most people, the risk reward is better there and it's easier to manage your temperament. But I've got this rule, like if you don't have exposure to a token, you can get a 30% entry and then, you can reserve the rest to like DCA on pullbacks. It really depends on your strategy, but that's a general framework that I use. A chart that looks very similar to CHEX, which is Chintai, is ClearPool. This is another top RWA protocol. They have their Ocean launch coming, I think, early next year, I think like January, which is going to be amazing. And because of that, like there's a major catalyst coming, which I think is going to drive a lot of attention to the project. And this is already performing really well, but like CHEX, it still is 240 million in terms of market cap. You've got Mantra at 1.5 billion. This is also, they're launching a chain, right? An RWA infra chain. That's what Mantra's doing as well. So these type of projects, in my opinion, have that, as I said, like anchoring reference point that can mean they perform really well. And this one's doing amazingly, like really amazingly. I first called this in the Discord. If you go to the Alpha channel, I first called this in the Discord, like, when was this? 5th of October. I gave you the early alpha. Let's go on to the 5th of October. 13 cents, right? So Discord members, and I did a YouTube show a few days later, so that was at 16 cents. So no matter what platform you're on, obviously Discord guys got it even earlier. You're already up 18%. CHEX, I'm not going to waste your time trying to find it, but I can tell you right now, I called that live on a Discord AMA at 21 cents. A little bit late, admittedly, but on CHEX, you would still be up, let's go to 21. I think it was like here or here, one of those days. It went up 46%. It's now up 35%. So if you want to obviously get the early alpha, join the Discord. But that wasn't meant to be a Discord shill. I'm just pointing out, like, these narratives aren't super hard to predict. It's simply trying to anticipate what the strongest tokens are going to be from each narrative. And I saw that both CHEX and CPOOL were doing really well. So I made that rotation, out of Ondo and OM into these coins, thinking there was, a higher potential performance in price given the discrepancy between them. So those are two that I still like, even at the current prices. But obviously, if you want to mitigate risk, just buy in on pullbacks. We get them. We got them 2 days ago. You're probably going to get it again. Maybe FOMC is going to happen, and the market will just FUD out for a few hours, and you'll get a nice wick. You can set limit orders, so you'll automatically buy wicks, etc. By the way, if you do want this indicator, it is in the Mars High Club here. It's called the Money Noodle. Paradise, our top trader, created it. He has it on TradingView. So if you do join the Discord, you're going to get access to that indicator. It's a custom indicator that you can add to your TradingView, and it's called the Money Noodle, and it's available in the Mars High Club exclusively for members. Another RWA protocol that I like, apart from those two, and I still hold Mantra and Ondo, by the way, I've just sized down a bit. I've just been taking profits and putting them into CPOOL and CHEX. On the Credbull, on the RWA front, there's a project called Credbull that's launching, I think, at the time of uploading this video. So I can't comment on price. I can't tell you whether to buy or sell or anything because I don't know the price, but if it's at a decent valuation, I can tell you it's something I'm interested in because I think what they're building is amazing. Basically, what you need to know, and we did a Spaces yesterday, you can go and listen to it if you want my opinion and a little more insight into the project, is it's an on-chain private credit fund, which is basically democratizing access to private credit. So historically, private credit, which is one of the most profitable in terms of returns, like 10% form of credit in the entire world, was only available to like wholesale big investors, and it wasn't available for retail investors. This is one of the reasons why RWA is so great, because it actually allows you to access different asset types that you previously couldn't access. So I do think there are a lot of other protocols in the space that are doing great things with real estate. So, for example, Chintai is big on real estate, CHEX. You've got other protocols like Ondo, which are big on tokenized securities, treasury yields, great. But we haven't really seen anyone nail private credit yet. And I think Credbull, if anyone is to nail it, these guys have the experience. They have the TradFi background. I love Jason, who's the founder. He's super, super smart. The team's amazing. They're launching on Plume Network, which is an RWA chain. They're backed by big VCs. I think they've got a genuine shot at doing it. And that's why I invested in them. And I'm a supporter of what they are doing. So once again, can't comment on the exact price, but it's on Mexi, so you can check it out today and see where the market cap is. And obviously in future videos, I can do a bit more TA once price starts to settle. Interestingly, even if you don't want to buy the token, you can actually earn free tokens by participating in their earn program. I'll actually leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out. And that basically enables you to earn free tokens. So there's always a way in the space to get exposure to a project beyond just buying. You can do tasks and you can earn some tokens because of that. So that's on the RWA front. Let's quickly talk about the next sector, which is DeFi. DeFi has already rallied. It's one of the strongest performers alongside meme coins since the Trump election. Athena is leading the pack. This is a really strong one. I think this can continue to go higher, by the way. I remember talking about this at like 20 to 25 cents. It's been amazing. I still hold Athena, and I'm just going to hold this trade. I'm not going to sell it. I've got a bit of a longer term outlook on it. Remember what I said, Athena is a reflexive asset. I remember making content on this on YouTube many times. I said there's two assets in crypto that are reflexive to the bull market. It's Athena because it basically reprices in line with funding rates, and it's Rune because Rune's flywheel with the Omni pool basically increases APRs as prices go higher for Ethereum and Bitcoin. We are seeing this play out in real time as the market goes more on a long bias versus a short bias. Over time, the price is repricing higher and higher and higher. And this is only going to accelerate more, in my opinion, as the narrative builds when more retail comes into the market. So it's a reflexive bet on the bull market. That's why I like Athena from a DeFi perspective, but obviously it's getting that benefit from the whole Trump news. One that hasn't run yet, because I know you might be like, oh, Athena's already pumping. Well, I'll give you one that isn't pumping that I think is another beneficiary. I said it before, it's Rune. It's now above the money noodle on the daily, which is important. If it can hold here, I think it can form a nice base to push higher. You got that resistance at 6.7. Once it breaks, if you look at the 3-day here, it's pretty much clear skies ahead to $11, which was its yearly high. So Rune is one that I'm looking at continuing to add. I did add a little bit in recent weeks, but I'm looking at ways to add even more Rune, especially on major dips. Uniswap's another one that, yes, it's already pumped, but in the scheme of things, I think there's a lot of upside here. It's the top DeFi blue chip. So I don't really think you need to try and be too tricky with DeFi. You can just pick the leaders and just make sure you hold them in your portfolio. So what are the two leaders apart from Rune and Athena? Uniswap and AAVE. These are very clear plays. AAVE actually tagged our green box and bounced off it. These are two plays that are going to be very sensitive to, in a good way, to this regulatory upheaval that we're potentially going to see. So those are two, and they're both so far off. They're both barely done anything in the scheme of the bull market. Obviously, they've started to move, but look, you're not going to get a 10x on these because they're big tokens. But in terms of being exposed to leaders that could outperform, they make complete sense. And, Rune probably has a bit more upside potential. Athena might have a bit more upside potential. There is more as well that I'm going to talk about in future videos, but I don't want to bog this down with small caps. So make sure you are subscribed if you want the earliest alpha is going to be in the Discord, then the YouTube for things like, DeFi, RWA coins, because I'm always finding new stuff, but those are the ones I think to focus on for now. And of course, memes. I did a thesis ahead of the election that I thought memes were the safest and probably going to be the best performing assets, as you can see here, pre-election on November 5th in both scenarios, a Trump or a Kamala win, due to the fact that Doge would pump, which it did, and lead the rest of the meme market and result in a broader basically rally into the meme narrative. And if Kamala won, I thought that it would also be good because DeFi would come under scrutiny, so people would be forced into nihilistic alternatives that couldn't be attacked by the SEC, like meme coins. And then I did a video on it, of course, when POPCAT was at $1.20, and a few other memes as well were featured in that video that I thought would perform well in either event, Kamala or Trump. That is exactly what we've seen since the election. Alongside DeFi, memes are the top performing narrative. They aren't going away. I've been banging the drum about memes pretty much all year. You can see it in the stats and you can see it in the price performance. Looking at memes, POPCAT's now 150, so up 30% since that video. WIF's also up 20% since that video. Pepe's up nicely, not up as much, but it's now flipping the money noodle. That's the indicator that we use in the Mars High Club. Let me show you the Pepe chart right now. PEPE, there we go. You see it's now flipping the money noodle. Let's just get rid of the scribble here into resistance, but looking really, really good on the daily. It's also flipping as well. It tagged our green zone, which was our buy zone, and is now starting to look for bullish continuation. That is the great thing, by the way, about this market. In an uptrending market, you can get into long continuation plays. So basically, as tokens trend to the upside, what'll happen is the noodle, right? It'll move up like this. And what you'll see is the tokens going up, making higher highs, and they basically move like this, and they continue to move into the average, and you can just keep raising your stop / invalidation on the trade, and every time you're getting in on a dip at support, you're decreasing your cost basis. So in an uptrending market, that's when these indicators can really, really come in handy. And obviously we give a lot of those setups, especially Paradise, who's the expert of this. He gives all these setups in his Trade Ideas channel and in the trading channel. Look, I mean, this is just in the last day, I had to just catch up on all those trades. He has all these trades that he posts in here, chart ideas, etc., that use the noodle for pretty much everything, all the entries. So if you want those entries in real time, Mars High Club is the place to be. There's a link in the description below to get access to the Mars High Club. You'll get the indicator, but most importantly, you'll get the education of how to actually use the indicator in the group. So memes continue to be a focus of mine on major dips. won't get into like the real low cap things today, but you guys know I hold POPCAT with Pepe. I still think they're going to outperform this cycle. So they have, naturally by nature of that, have to be a focus. GOAT, SPX, all performing really, really well. GOAT's back at 80 again. Called that at 20. SPX is at 87. I called that on the show at 60. All of these are up and performing well. And if you were heavily capitalized in memes, like I've been talking about, your portfolio is probably looking really good right now. And our portfolio is probably looking a lot better than other channels that have been shilling a lot of like antiquated stuff like Cardano and XRP and Quant and all this. Like we are in the strongest narratives. And that's why in a bull run, the Mars Deutscher family outperforms. And AI is the last narrative that I believe outperforms. Won't go too much into it, but we all know about AI. I've actually got some lower cap AI tokens that I'm going to be sharing in the Discord first in my alpha channel over the coming days. Now that I think the market is more risk on, I didn't want to do it during the whole election in case it went against us, and because we could have seen some real bad volatility if Kamala won on some of those AI tokens. So I held off, but now I'm more comfortable sharing them. I'm going to be sharing them first in the alpha channel over the coming days. They're really, really good tokens that I've added to my portfolio, and I'm also going to be doing a full AI video where I will reveal them in the future. But of course, MHC is going to get first dibs, and there's a link in the description below to the Mars High Club. If you do want to join and be a part of the amazing community, we just hit an all-time high for members, by the way. I had a comment the other day saying, oh, Miles, if MHC is so good, then why are you always shilling it? Must mean there's not many members if you're so desperate. Bro, for me, it's not about money. For me, it's about building community. And the more I can talk about it on the shows, the bigger the community becomes, and the more fun I have, and the more I can actually add value to you. It's not really about the money for me. Of course, make a bit of extra money is great, but we reinvest so much back into the group. We're always expanding the group. For me, having the community is the most important thing. And the reason we have it at the price point that we have it is A, I believe we can justify it given the value in there. But B, most importantly, it basically kind of cuts out a lot of the people that aren't serious, and it means we have a really invested group of individuals that all help each other. And if I did a free Discord, and it wouldn't even be feasible with the amount we invest into it, you just wouldn't have the sense of community that we actually have in the group. So there are very valid reasons for why I did it. I might launch a free alternative. I talked about in the live stream yesterday, a free Telegram, and I'm going to be launching one, but it's not going to be MHC. It's going to be a different offering to cater for the people that maybe have much smaller portfolios, because I understand not all of you are swimming in cash. Some of you have smaller portfolios, and obviously the videos are free and I cater to that, but for the ones that are really serious, that's why we have MHC, and I think we justify the price in my opinion. So I'm not shilling it because I'm desperate for money, but because we just hit a group all-time high. So I mean, I'm not shilling it because I'm desperate to get members. We're at an all-time high. We're doing it. We're at 1,000 members. So yeah, there you go. I'll see you in the next video. On that note, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Lock into the freaking market because things are about to get exciting. And give yourself a pat on the back because we've survived FTX. We've survived everything together. I've uploaded pretty much every day, at least every week, throughout all of it. When Bitcoin was $16,000, I was doing videos. When Ethereum was $900, I was doing videos. When I didn't want to do them, when I was depressed, and we pushed through the entire thing, and Trump is the president, and Operation Choke Point is now out of the way, and we're entering phase 3 of the bull market. Congrats, pat on the back. I'll see you in the next video. Peace the frick out.